Let's look at the quality characteristics that matter in web systems. Most of them, but some of them specifically. Scalability seems to matter with web systems, or can matter with web systems. Some of them it matters a great deal. Would you be so lucky? But an awful lot of web systems are created to be basically internal systems, and scalability is not likely to be such a big issue. But when it matters, it really matters. So that's something that you really need to consider when you're building a web or designing a web application. Security, you do need to consider as well. Even the most innocent of applications probably will need to consider security where previously it probably didn't. Usability is a big issue on the web. Now this is because a lot of web systems are being used by the general public. There isn't the time to learn how to use it. I mean, if they can't use it, it's just too hard, forget it, we'll just go and do something else. You can't train them up. There isn't the time to do that either. So usability is coming to the fore in web application systems. And reliability, frequently some of these systems are truly 24/7, and that means you're going to have to do some interesting things for things that naturally would fill up, like if you're doing logging. Well, sooner or later the log file is going to fill up. What are you going to do then? Now there really are only two other qualities in there. It's testability and modifiability, and we'll deal with modifiability later. I don't cover testability in this segment. Security. Not all users are well intended. If you have a web system, web application, it means that your application, unless you contain it within a private network, it's going to be exposed to the world at large. And you can't assume that everybody using your system is going to be well intended. So you'll have to provide for some form of security. Probably the best advice is to limit what the application can do, and also to have a look at some of the historical examples or some of the examples from other domains. Now, for example, concert halls, sports stadiums have the same concerns. That is, they have to be open to the public, but the public need to be constrained in what they can do. You can't have the whole public walking backstage. That would, well, it would be a health hazard, among other things, but it would disrupt the service that you could put on. So they can find where people can go, and I suppose a web application can try and do the same kind of thing. Usability really is a big deal. Now there's some heuristics coming out, and Nielsen's heuristics seem to be proving fairly popular. There are 10 of them. I won't go through them all. They're listed all out there. But you could look through them all and think, well, yeah, that's all very sensible. Well, fine. If you find them just sensible, then by all means go do it. Now, some usability examples. There really is a lot of advice available on how to make things usable. The internet's full of it all. Some of the good advice is that we hate learning things. Now, if we already list our phone number with brackets and pluses and gaps, then your application ought to take it that way. However the user wants to enter it, so that if there's gaps in it, we'll take the gaps. If there's no gaps, deal with that. But don't try and insist, as I've seen some websites insist, you must put it in all numbers, nothing else. No spaces, no other characters. Well, that's not how I think of a phone number. We don't like repeating things we've already told you. So, for example, if you ask for my name, then I don't expect you to ask for my name again later within the same transaction. I told you that, you remember it. And users don't like waiting. Now, some waiting is going to be inevitable because the application is not in control of the internet and it can't control how fast things are. But what you can do is keep the user informed about the state of the transaction, whether it's progressing and how much it's progressing. And I think, there was a system that I came across recently that was extremely good at it, and they kept saying, okay, we're doing this now, we're doing that now, we're doing that now. What I didn't know is how many of these things they were going to do. I didn't know whether this one was the last one or there's going to be another 5 more. You know? So that can be a problem. Now, reliability. Reliability can be a problem because the internet of itself has to be regarded as unreliable, particularly when you're getting around to mobile computing. You have no idea whether any one link or line or communication is going to drop out. So you have to design accordingly. The web systems also tend to be evolving and dynamic. Right? There is a higher likelihood of defects in the deployed application. So you have to design the system so that your application can actually deal with some failure somewhere around the place. So high reliability architecture does need multiple things to go wrong before the whole system itself comes down. The whole idea there is if something goes wrong, you should be able to stop that and that alone and carry on without that particular component. Modifiability, again a big problem, or quite important in web systems, because these seem to be continually modified, and you want a system that is able to be modified easily and redeployed easily. So that tends to be a fairly modular system, and now we're getting into this whole area of DevOps, where development and operations kind of merge in some ways, so that the developers, so that the deployment of these things is not such a big deal. Performance. The internet of itself is not the highest performing thing on the planet, but some applications do require a certain amount of performance. Now all these video streaming services or music streaming services, the streaming services are concerned about performance, because obviously they want you to receive the information without interruption. They don't want gaps in it, and they don't want other things to go on. So any of these real-time chat systems, say Skype and Google Hangout, people like that, they want that transmission to be very fast. They want the application system to respond in real time, and they need to design a system to do that. From what I understand, most of the time how they manage that is by horizontal scaling.